Hello everyone, welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming, and it is Friday, so we will be taking a look at a Zerg strategy. Today's video, the player we're focusing on here is ATN's Dark Force, and the opponent in this matchup is going to be Grubby. So this is a Zerg versus Protoss strategy, and what I want to take a look at in particular in today's video will be a nice opening on this map in particular, with the possibility of dealing with Void Ray harass being very high, and also Phoenix harass could be quite potential as well on this map. So anything with kind of a close air distance where you may also deal with Void Rays. The other thing too is that this particular build will let you deal with quick Dark Templar as well, because you will be getting out the Evolution Chamber somewhat earlier than maybe we would say is normal, and then with that of course you'll have that cloak detection from those Spore Crawlers. So that's the particular build we'll be taking a look at, and then also of course we'll be discussing scouting and just pretty much everything that Dark Force does in this game. So in terms of the build order, Dark Force opted for the safe build order, as we would call it, starting off with the Pool and Extractor first, getting those 4 initial Zerglings, we can see those are actually producing right now, is first Queen as well, and then dropping the expansion at typically 21 supply. That's when you're normally going to see that go down with that Pool Extractor in one base first. And as you can see as well, once he has that first 100 gas for the metabolic boost of that Vespian, then he will stop mining, pull guys off the gas, and it is not until a later point, pretty much about the time that the hatchery at the expansion is almost finished, that you actually put guys back on the gas. So the big thing we're taking a look at here, we can see over here, just moving out, doing some scouting. Of course, want to keep an eye on the expansion. And I'll make, there we go, look at that timing. Let me pause really quickly here. So we can see the guys, Dark Force just put drones back on the Vespian guys, and we can see he did that at about the time that we were about, let's say about 3/4 of the way finished with the hatchery. And what that's going to do is that this Queen will be finished, you get that next 100 Vespian, and that's when you of course start your layer tech. But in terms of the scouting here, we can see, let's take a look at this Overlord. This is scouting particularly this expansion, and you can see he is just looking at the minerals, and you might say, well, how does that tell him if the expansion is dropped? Of course, once mining does start, you will see that these minerals will be depleted. We can see at 1500 resources right now, and then of course as soon as mining starts, that does deplete. So that's actually all he's using that Overlord to scout, just the mineral patches. If you do see that this number is below 1500 for one reason, then you know that there's an expansion there and that he started mining in that position. So let's just go ahead and pick it back up, and I'm just going to run over that build order very quickly here in just one moment. Let me lower it down. Second Queen being you, after the first Queen is done, you of course start building the second Queen, and then initially dropping that Creep Tumor is a great idea. Being able to connect your main base to your expansion, to your natural expansion, is going to make it so that you're much more easily able to defend it. So I will slow it on down here, and let's talk quickly about the build order that he used. He started off with 14 Extractor, then 14 Pool, had 100 Vespian, get that metabolic boost. That was at 18 supply when the metabolic boost started. Then at 21 is when the hatchery started building at that natural expansion. 29 is the Roach Warren, and then at 34 the layer starts, and 36 is when that evolution chamber starts. And look at this, right at about that same time, we were just under 6 minutes and 30 seconds within the game. That is when a first Void Ray is coming out. Grubby pretty much went straight for this. He got that starport pretty much up as Stargate, pretty much up as fast as possible, and got out that Void Ray very quickly. And this is about the time you would expect it. So the scouting Overlords helping Dark Force see it. His immediate response is, well, this is great because my evolution chamber is just about finished. So specifically, lots of people have questions as to when they should be getting upgrades or when they should be dropping their evolution chamber. In this particular game, what Dark Force did was he ended up getting it at 36 supply, and that was basically just after he had started the layer. He started layer tech, then the next thing was to get that evolution chamber. And as I mentioned, this will help you deal with the Void Rays, but also help you deal with any type of DT harassment, DT kind of rushes, if you will. By the time this evolution chamber finishes, you will be able to get down a Spore Crawler in your main and a Spore Crawler at your natural, and then if your opponent had gone for fast Dark Templar, well, you would be able to handle that because you would have the cloak detection, and then you could just use whatever units you have to engage with it. But the other thing is that it helps kind of fend off a little bit these Void Rays. Your primary asset, though, against the Void Ray is actually going to be your Queens. So again, the Overlord, unfortunately, of Dark Force did get taken out. He, of course, recreated an additional Overlord to compensate for that loss, but knowing that these are coming coming right now, what we're going to see Dark Force do immediately is bunch up his queens. You want your queens to be together. 2 queens will take out 1 Void Ray, not a problem, especially before that charge up does complete. And thankfully, because Dark Force dropped that creep tumor with his 2nd queen right away, now his bases are connected, and with that spread of creep, he will be able to reinforce and move those queens down together in tandem to actually deal with his Void Ray. So you can see right now, 2 queens together, a bit too much for 1 Void Ray to handle, and that does shoo it back. We can see he did drop the 1 Spore Crawler too as soon as he spotted with that Scouting Overlord that the Void Ray was coming out. So again, I just wanted to kind of show you the build order that Dark Force used, and show you how it could deal. It helps you deal with those Void Rays by having those Spore Crawlers, but again, once more, it'll help you deal with those DT as well. Now what Dark Force is doing is, of course, as soon as the layer popped, and he felt like he was done dealing with this, he dropped the Hydralisk Den, and that of course is going to make, well, a great unit composition against Protoss players. A lot of times you will see Roach Hydra as the main unit comp of choice, and then also, just in case the Protoss player did decide to go for a little more Void Ray heavy, obviously this is pretty light Void Ray harassment from Grubby, you would have those Hydras out just in case you saw 2 or 3 more Void Rays in the mix. But just dealing with this one, not a problem. I get a lot of questions, how do I deal with early Void Rays? And once more, it is just queens. The Spore Crawlers help a little bit, but realize, yes, queens are your primary mode of defense, and just try to make sure that you engage as groups, and you will pretty much be all set. So right now, we're seeing Dark Force now that he has some decent saturation, and I want to note as well, pause really quickly, this last batch of Zerglings, which he pretty much just produced, I want to say about 30 seconds in-game time ago, that is it. That is all he had really had. He started off with those initial 4 Zerglings, but besides that, even with dealing with the Void Ray harass, he just kept droning up right through it. You don't want to lose track of your macro at all. Just keep paying attention to what you need to do. Make sure, of course, you get that Hydralisk Den out, and then now at this point, we're about 9 minutes into the game, and this is when Dark Force will start his push. We're going to see him actually, oh, I didn't want to do that at all. We're going to see him go ahead and break down these destructible rocks. This is, of course, a big advantage here in Scrap Station, especially if you can start to get some creep across there. That's going to help quite a bit. Still some continued Void Ray harass, but with queens, once more, that is not a problem whatsoever. So at this point in the game, what we're actually going to see Dark Force do is push out Hydra Heavy, and now I want you to keep something in mind about this. His thought process was, well, Colossus are probably going to be delayed because I've been seeing Void Rays, and the reason I say that is because Hydras do pretty poorly against Colossus. Clearly, yes, if they can get within range of the Colossus, they will snipe them down, but the issue is that Hydras being so slow and having a relatively small range have a hard time getting up on Colossus, and Colossus do very well against them given the fact that Hydras are a light unit. But once more, starting with that opening Void Ray, we saw Dark Force make that decision that, hey, you know what, I bet if he has Colossus, it's not a lot, and a heavy Hydra push will do very well. And if your opponent is mostly gateway units and just a Void Ray or 2, mass Hydras will tear right through it. And then what we are actually going to see happen is then finally Grubby does get out that Colossus, and it will rain hell here on these units. Just look at the devastation it's creating right now, and not a lot those Hydras can do about it. But then what does Dark Force do? He just makes that quick transition then into Roach Heavy. We can see 10 Roaches just did pop. Also that Roach speed just about to finish, and that transition straight into Roaches after this initial heavy Hydra push will fare very, very well. So we see those Roaches making their way through, and unfortunately actually Dark Force didn't manage to break down all of those rocks and just taking the long route, but no big deal. The main things we looked at again in this particular replay were the Evolution Chamber timing, how to deal with the Void Ray push, and the possibility of that DT push. The timing of that Evo Chamber will help pretty well and not hinder your economy as well. I mean, someone could say, yes, well, I could also deal with DT by just going straight for an Evolution Chamber. But yeah, it's also kind of a not logical build, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it actually hinder you more than it would help. So that was kind of an ideal timing for the Evolution Chamber that we saw Dark Force do, and that's the main reason I want to show you this video. And again, that heavy Hydra push, knowing that the Colossus count is going to be pretty low at that stage in the game, because if they had, you know, not gone for initial Void Rays and they just basically gone straight into Gateway Colossus tech, then a heavy Hydra push could be very dangerous. But Dark Force, realizing that wasn't probably the case, he just pushed out with heavy Hydra, and you could see how well it did. Then he made the transition into Roach after the fact. So let's once more mention the build order, the opening that we saw Dark Force use in this game. Once again, it was 14 Extractor, 14 Pool, that nice safe opening, the quick metabolic boost, starting the game out with those 4 Zerglings, and then dropping your expansion, that hatchery, at 21 supply. 29 supply is when the Roach Warren came out, and then at 34 supply, the layer has started, and 36 supply is that evolution chamber timing. If you happen to see Void Rays, realize you should just bunch your queens up together. Also, in terms of queen numbers, 3 is probably kind of ideal. You want at least 1 per base, so of course you already have the 2 queens, but having a 3rd queen to deal with the Void Ray harass and also to spread creep is going to be kind of a best case scenario. So I would certainly strongly suggest looking to get, once you have 2 bases up, 3 queens total, and you should have no problem with early game Void Rays. And yes, there you have it. And then dropping that Hydra Den after the layer did complete, pushing out with heavy Hydra, knowing the fact that the count of Colossus was going to be low. Those Hydras tear through those just gateway units, and yeah, Dark Force made a quick, clear victory of this game. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this commentary. I've got some exciting stuff going on tomorrow, Saturday the 18th, and I will be making a video later in the day about that, letting you guys know. But anyways, yes, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel. Keep watching and keep owning.